A while back I received access once more to Europa Universalis 5, and ever since I have been playing it pretty much non-stop, to be honest with you, in the hopes that I can give you guys my honest opinion and more informed opinion on the state of the game as it is right now. There have been a lot of changes, and I will be tackling some major things in this video, especially performance, UI, flavor, balance, the biggest problems that the game faces right now, and AI and automation, which is going to get its own dedicated section in this video. Now, for the purpose of the video, I'm actually using in-game footage from my already released Byzantium video. So this here is actually from footage that I've already published. It is not new footage. Why am I doing this? Well, it's easier for me to illustrate what exactly has changed by showing you what it looked like before, and then I'll just use likely Microsoft Paint or something to show you how it's been changed, because I'm not allowed to show new footage yet. I know you guys are big fans of history, which is why I know you'll be happy to hear about today's sponsor, Heroes of History, a strategic city builder where you collect famous historical and mythological characters like Cleopatra and Hercules. You can build your own civilization and you advance through the ages, unlocking new technology, claiming new heroes such as Robin Hood and Einstein, which will fight side by side for your amusement. The great part is the game has amazing offline protection, so it's perfect for those that enjoy short sessions with long-term progression, and it's super easy to start as well as fun to master. Heroes of History is celebrating its first anniversary from September 26th to 30th, and you have the unique opportunity to join in on the fun, earn exclusive 4 and 5-star heroes such as Alexander the Great and El Cid by completing various tasks once you've unlocked the prosperity tech, and claim a free anniversary gift available to all players by using the promo code 1YearStart, which includes a legendary antimatter and packs of food and scrolls for free. So don't miss out and join in on the fun of seeing your civilization grow and prosper at your own pace by clicking my link in description or pinned comment. Now, before we begin with this, I have a little bit of a request. If you're planning on getting EU5 or any game in general, I have a little link which is an affiliate link, so I get a commission on every purchase. I really would appreciate it. This is literally how I make my living, so do consider it. If you don't want to use it, that's fine as well. I understand, and I appreciate you still considering. First topic is performance, right? Now, one of the biggest issues that we had before was actually performance. In this version of the game that I received a few months back, that was in April, May, it was really bad. Like, I kind of sugarcoated how it was before. It was really bad. Like, the game was crashing a lot with the 4080S and i9 14900K that I have on this PC. It was stuttering. It was basically unplayable after the 1500s because of the lag and because of performance issues. That's been fixed. That's actually been fixed. So in the newest version, there have been multiple versions over time since. Now, I received access to the latest version, which is the more polished version from what I understand from people that had access to the mid version between the one I had before and the one I have now. And performance, I'll give it honestly a good solid 8 out of 10. So I haven't really tested with all of my rigs. I haven't tested with the older ones. So I will come back to performance. I'll probably do a dedicated video on performance. You guys let me know in the comments if you want me to do a dedicated video on performance, actually, where I illustrate every single rig and what times and such. But overall right now, there's no crashes. I think I had one crash in like 50 hours of gameplay, which is a massive improvement. The game is very smooth. I'm not getting any sort of stutters. I'm not getting any sort of lag. I played a couple of games already up until the 1650s, 1700s, and they were very smooth even up. Obviously, as you increase the amount of population on the map, I'm assuming that's what counts. I'm not a coder, again. Don't quote me on this. I don't know what affects the performance, but the more you progress in the campaign, you do see a little bit of latency, a little bit of issues with performance. I personally assume it's because of population increase, because you do have a massive population increase, but I don't know if that's the reason why it happens later in the campaign. However, compared to what it's like at the start of the campaign, let's say it's a little bit worse by 30% by the 1650. So 30% is a big improvement compared to how it was before, because in the previous version, it was like it started at 2 out of 10 performance, and ended up at -3 out of 10 performance by the 1600s. I genuinely quit by the 17 because I just couldn't. My PC was dying. Like literally, my PC was super overheated. It was bad. Now I don't have that issue. It doesn't overheat. It doesn't struggle to run the game. I'm actually playing Tarkov and EU5 at the same time most of the times because I'm camping D2. Classic. Anyway, if you know, you know. The point is that I'm playing two high processing games, very performance consuming, I guess you could say, games, and they're both working at the same time, so it's good. That's what I like to call the Tarkov test. If you can play Tarkov and another game at the same time, it means you're doing a good thing, right? So yeah, from a performance perspective, I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. I would say 8 out of 10 right now. There are going to be better things coming. I'm not sure what's going to come with the next version that we're going to receive, but there have been improvements from what I understand. So I think even a 9 out of 10 would be perfect. I'm hopeful it might be a 10 out of 10 by the time the game releases though from performance. So yeah, performance wise, tick. I actually have a little notebook here. I'm not like those fancy YouTubers. I genuinely just use a notebook where I write stuff. So yeah, that's a tick on performance right there, boys. That is a tick on performance. It is pretty good. Next topic I want to talk about is UI, and this is where the video behind me comes into play. I'm going to be using my old footage to illustrate what's new. So let me put myself in the corner so we hide the other Ludi. This is the bad Ludi, the foul-mouthed Ludi. Ludi nobody likes. We got a better Ludi in the meanwhile, a lot more censored. So the UI itself on the whole map, like as you looking at it now, is about the same. There's some changes, and I'm actually going to take a screenshot now. So what's been added is we've got another little bit of a box over here with the missions, and that's it on the right side. The interface here has been enlarged a little bit, so I think it includes a little bit more, like from here to here, and Age of Traditions or whatever age you're in is a little bit more centered. The top is identical, the estates is identical, the flag, the ruler is the same, everything is positioned here the same, with the exception that you do have in front of whatever nation you're playing as, you've got the international organization. So you've got, if you're part of the HRE, you have the HRE icon, you have the Catholic Church icon, or whatever church you're a part of. So you can just click those two icons, and you can directly get access to that particular international organization. That's it. That's all the change with the interface, main changes with the interface. So there have been other changes, we'll get to that in a second, but from the interface that you first see, that's the changes. It's not bad. I'll be honest, I actually am okay with it. In general, I feel like the interface is very good compared to the old version, which I'm glad no one's ever put their eyes on. Trust me, this is 10 times better. However, I do have some issues with this, namely, and these are very small issues. Take note, these are issues probably affecting me more than it's going to affect you guys. Some of you know I do have dyslexia, so sometimes there's a lot of information and a small little area. It can get very difficult for me to go through, but once I get used to it, so after I play it after a few hours, it's fine. So when I first laid hands on the new version and I saw the interface, it was basically the same like the old one with small changes, so it didn't really affect me too much. However, I do know it can get very confusing. The main interface is not the confusing part though. I actually think this is fine. I actually don't even want them to change anything because this is honestly okay. Maybe make the text a little bit bigger. That would be the main issue, quote unquote. Before I show another slide, I can mention a few things about the map. There's been some improvements with the map. I'm gonna add that to the UI part of the video, of course, because it's kind of UI-ish, I guess. So one thing that's really important is it's a lot easier to tell whenever there's a castle or not in a particular province. Now you have an option to change the size of the village or whatever location you might have in your provinces, so you can make it smaller or bigger, whichever way you want to do it. And there's been some more color coding. So for example, here when you give a new privilege for the agrikoi, which is the commoners in the case of the Byzantines, the privileges themselves have been given a different color, so they're a little bit reddish compared to the blue outline of the interface where you give this in. And that's a recurrent theme when it comes to other parts of the UI. So they've basically made different color changes to the different tabs that you whenever you click, for example, a tab, say you're in the military tab, the tab itself is going to be redded out instead of just blue highlighted, and the rest of the tab is not going to be blue, it's going to be a yellowish, whilst the buttons for recruitment will be blue with a yellow outline whenever they're clicked. So there's been some significant changes to that. It might not seem like a lot, but it makes it a lot more homey, I guess I could say. It feels more comfortable, more cozy, I guess you could say. I don't know. It seems like small changes, but they really make a massive impact in my opinion, because it felt very unpolished before the way it was. Now it definitely is a lot more polished. Every single category has received a lot more of attention. Also, I'm not sure if you could have done this before or not, but you can actually hide all of the stuff in the right side of the screen. You can just make it so it only shows like a small little tiny bit, basically kind of like this small, so it goes all the way in there, and it's like here basically. It's really nice. You can just pop it out and pop it in whenever you want. That's a really good quality of life change in my opinion. Also, for the military tab, you don't have the disposition like this. So instead of units and objectives, you have armies and navy, so they're separated in two categories. When you click the armies tab, you have all the information about the army on one side and the power bonuses on the other side. So it's a little bit like this is on this side, these four are on this side, and these four are on this side basically, whilst this is called armies and the other one is called navy. So you don't have objectives and units anymore, you only have navies and armies. And at the bottom here, instead of current armies and current navies, you just have the three tabs: raise navies, raise regulars, raise hire mercenaries. And you can obviously see whatever army or navy you have based on clicking the army or the navy tab, which is a lot more intuitive, a lot smarter. It's not as convoluted as it was before. So big W for the changes they've made to the individual tabs. The military one aside, and it looks horrible the way I made it right now. Let me actually try and polish this and make it look nice. There you go. This is kind of what it looks like now when you click on one of the tabs, and it changes based on clicking on army or navy. It's obviously a lot better than what I'm showing here. Okay, I'm just really bad at using paint obviously now. It's become very clear to me that I should not have done any sort of paint job at all. Another tab I'm going to use as an example is the production tab. They've made it a lot more streamlined, so the icons themselves are tinier. It doesn't give as much information in as big of a space. What does that mean? It means that instead of seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of buildings here, you actually see like 20. So basically it's like one line is an entire building, and within that one line you understand the type of building it is, the amount of money that you could potentially make from it if you build it, how many have already been built within your country, and whether it is open or closed or subsidized or not. So all of that is within just like one little row. It's really neatly done. Massive improvement compared to before, where it was nicely, it's beautiful like that too, but it's like a lot of information. It just takes away from, it makes it a lot more difficult for you to scroll through all the buildings, because there's just so many types of buildings, and I'm pretty sure they added even more now with this version, or at least they added more upgrades to the ones that we had before anyway. There's also been changes done to this area here: automate building construction, automate production methods. Instead of the whole text here, you just have two icons, like a little house icon and a little forge icon, and you have the automate button next to it. So you click the forge automate, you click the house automate, and it automates buildings or production methods. It's way more streamlined, a lot better, a lot more explicit, and doesn't take as much space as it did before. Also, you've got here all the different types of pops. So you have 8 types of pops. I'm gonna take a screenshot again. It looks a tiny bit like this. So you have like one box for, I think, nobles is first, then another box for clerics, then another box for burghers, then another box for peasants. Actually, no, fourth one is laborers, then we have soldiers, and then we have peasants, and then we have tribesmen, and then schlebs, the last one. And then they're all different icons. So you have like a little soldier in the soldiers tab, you have a little nobleman in the nobles tab, etc. This is really well done. One thing that I would like as an improvement to this is if they color coded this a little bit better. It is slightly color coded. The outline is color coded. You can see the clothing of the different pops is blue or red or whatever based on what type of pop they are. But I would like to actually make the box itself, so like blue box with the icon in the middle, yellow box, white box, whatever. So it's a lot more intuitive that way, in my opinion. Just an opinion, of course, so keep that in mind. Now, take note, there are some issues with the interface that I think need to be addressed. One of the bigger issues is the market screen. The market screen is very, very confusing. So it took me a good 30 hours just to understand it properly, and I still don't think I understand it properly. So it's a good thing that I've got a lot of time, right? Because I think it's going to take me a while to properly understand trade. I mean, I understood already how trade works, but there are some gaps, of course, as you would imagine. Speaking of trade, I probably should mention this in the balance, but I'll make a little sub note here. It's been nerfed. It's been seriously nerfed. I'm talking you make very little from trade compared to before. It's still not bad, so focusing on trade is still pretty profitable, but before you could make by the 1400s, like, I don't know, 1,000 ducats from trade alone as the Byzantines. Now you can make 100. You're lucky if you make 100. You're probably gonna make like 40 or 50. So it's a very significant change from 40, 50 ducats to 1,000. It is a massive drop. That being said, 40, 50 is still big money considering you're gonna need it. I mean, everything is so expensive. Anyway, I'll talk about balance later. Let's finish off the UI talk. My major issue with UI, aside from what I mentioned so far, is that it's very difficult to understand where anything is. So I was, for example, playing as Brandenburg, and I wanted to find out where exactly does it tell me the Wittelsbach neglect. It's apparently a mechanic, or it should be a mechanic for the for Brandenburg, where you need to go above a certain amount of neglect or below a certain amount of neglect to trigger a replacement of the Wittelsbach, which gets rid of that particular modifier. I've played Brandenburg probably 30 hours since I got access to the game alone. So that out of 50 roughly hours, 30 were just Brandenburg. I still haven't found that. I'm not even kidding. I have not found where in the UI it tells me the Wittelsbach neglect levels. I know where the Wittelsbach neglect modifier is. It's on the country tab. There's a little icon. You click that and it tells you you're affected by the Wittelsbach neglect. But I haven't seen anywhere on my UI telling me the level of neglect or how I can improve or decrease or get rid of it or change the level. Basically, it tells you when you start the game, when you start the campaign, it tells you that there will be events that will affect it. And yes, there are in fact events. There's not many, and you have to be careful when you get events because you might end up not reading it and you might end up in a very bad spot. Usually there are events that gets you the Hohenzollerns around the 1370s or so that's good. That's actually historical. The emperor can change your leadership, but it's just frustrating that 30 hours I don't know where the level of neglect. I haven't found it, man. It's crazy. There's so many different tabs that you can open right now, and you have a lot of information that you do get, but some of the information is just really tough to get. Like, it should be very easy, like right click on a nation or left click on a nation. Better yet, left click doesn't really do anything. Actually, you have to right click and then you get different tabs opening up, and then from those tabs you got to choose another tab, and then that tabs you lead you to another tab, which leads you to another tab that tells you the loyalty of your subject. I should just be clicking once and I should have a tab that tells me the loyalty of the subject, tells me the everything. It doesn't work like that. There is a main tab where you do click and you open country tab, and that tells you base tax, potential for levies, their alliances, all that stuff, but it doesn't tell you everything, and some of the information is really, really hard to find for some reason. I don't know. For UI, I'd say there's still work to be done on it, and I'm sure that in the internal version that they're going to give us later, there's going to be a lot of good changes, but I will give the UI there you go, 7 out of 10 for UI. Now, let's talk a little bit about flavor. I have to say that I am very positively surprised by the amount of flavor that the game has right now. I was expecting it to not have as much flavor. I really was. I did not expect that it would have as much as it has, right? So aside from what I talked about with Brandenburg, where you have Wittelsbach neglect, which is a unique mechanic and event chain that they get, you've got stuff like that for countries like Moldova, Wallachia. You got unique advances, which is technologies for Moldova, Wallachia. You got unique events for Moldova, Wallachia, which big shout out to the dev team, man. I mean, they really took the time to do that. That is actually pretty impressive. I was expecting to get no events for them. Now, that being said, here's the problem. I'm going to use one of the Tinto talks as a background for this because I think it's more fitting, right? So from a historical perspective, there's things that I disagree with. I'm not going to go into that because stuff like 20% of Transylvania being Romanians and 80% being Hungarians and Germans makes no sense to me. It also doesn't make logical sense because by that logic, you would have no Romanians Romanians by the 1800s, right? Anyway, leaving all that stuff aside, because I know that can cause drama and there's different historical interpretations based on where you're from. Leaving that aside, some of the flavor implemented for these areas is not properly implemented. Now, I'm sure that the internal version is already fixed. I don't know if it's fixed. I let Paradox know. I made a little ticket telling them that's an issue. They haven't acknowledged it yet because there's a lot of tickets. There's a lot of content creators involved in this, and I'm a big shout out to all the content creators actually, because they've been putting in a lot of work. They've been writing a lot of tickets about bugs, about issues, about stuff that's not triggering, stuff that's too overpowered, stuff that's underpowered, and there's a lot. It's gonna take a while, that's for sure. I think the dev team has a massive amount of work to do right now. Speaking of this, I'm gonna get into this topic here, Tatar Overlord and all this, because this is actually really interesting, the tribute and payment system. We'll discuss about this in a second too. So when it comes to Moldova, right, I'll give you guys a little bit of short AAR. So I was playing as one of the Moldovan little nations here, so one of these tiny nations here, right? They start as tributaries or whatever subjects of the Golden Horde. They don't have their own diplomacy, they cannot declare war on one another, and there is a event that triggers roughly 10-15 years into the campaign where every single Moldovan principality there becomes united into Moldova, and that Moldova becomes a march of Hungary. That's historical. That is actually exactly what happened. Basically, the Hungarian king sent some Romanian noblemen from Transylvania in a means of both depopulating Transylvania of Romanians because there was too many, but apparently that's not the case in EU5. Anyway, and the second idea was that it would create a buffer state between them and the Golden Horde to protect against the Mongolians in the future, right? There was no historical record of a war between the Golden Horde and Hungary when this was done. It is very well documented that it happened. That is basically the foundation of Moldova due to the Hungarian crown. And if these principalities were subjects of the Golden Horde, then the Golden Horde would 100% attack the Hungarians if they just flat out took their lands. Aside from that, there's multiple records stating that these areas should be independent. They had trade, they had alliances with the Poles, with the Hungarians. They were trading with the various nations around and had diplomatic relations with various nations around, so it makes zero sense for them to be tributaries. But aside from that also, and I said aside from that a lot of times, make sure you take a shot every time I say it, because aside from that, there's a problem with the event. This is where the problem with the flavor comes in, and this is where my ticket comes in. Basically, if you are, the player is playing as any of the Moldovan principalities, when the event happens, you do not get eaten up and you don't become Moldova. You just end up sitting there as one of the little Moldovan principalities. You still stay a tributary or a subject of the Golden Horde, whilst everybody else around you becomes a march of Hungary. The only option you have when the event triggers is one option, the option that says we cannot abandon our overlords or something of the sort. I don't remember the exact phrasing. I tried this as 4 different of the little nations there. As all 4 of them, I got the same thing. This leads me to believe there has to be a reason, right? Either you need really high relations with Hungary, which is not explained anywhere that you should have really high relations with Hungary in order to be a part of the Moldovan March when it formed, which that's fine, but I tried getting really high relations and I still had the same result where I could not become Moldova under any circumstance. Or second option is that it's not scripted, that you if one of the nations is played by a player, that they don't join Moldova. That's how it is in the script. I don't know, I haven't seen the script itself, I haven't opened the files themselves, so I don't know. The issue with this is that it's basically unplayable now, because you end up being surrounded by a Hungarian March of Moldova whilst you're a tributary of the Golden Horde. So you have to either declare war on the Golden Horde to get your independence, which is impossible because nobody supports it, or just end up, it's just literally unplayable. It's a very weird situation where I understand that there was flavor supposed to be there to make it fun playing as it, but it ended up being not fun, just unplayable, literally unplayable. And it's not only this particular case. I gave this because obviously I played a little bit as Moldova and it's where I'm from originally and I wanted to see what it's like, right? But there's more stuff like this. For example, in Japan, the daimyos in Japan, are we at the balance? Yeah, we are at the no, this is flavor. I'm gonna mix flavor and balance. I know this is flavor. This is flavor. So I played as some of the daimyos in Japan, and there's a bug right now. I hope it gets addressed. Basically, you just declare war on another daimyo, and after a while, you end up winning the war without having to do anything. That's it. That's it. You just sit there and you won the war. And I'm assuming that they haven't finished scripting all of that part of the world. I don't know, but if they have, and I kind of suspect that they did, because the shogunate mechanics are all in. You have a lot of interactions you can do. You have a lot of different stuff that you didn't have in the previous version. The daimyos actually are making money, and they have ways of making money now compared to before, where you flat out just had no way of making money. Now you actually have some ways, some buildings and stuff that you can do, some laws you can enact, some you have an actual playable daimyo basically compared to the previous version. But that being said, just sitting there avoiding combat and after like a couple of years you win the war without doing anything is not normal, and I'm sure that's addressed too. I think I've seen a few other creators also talking about this, so I'm sure that they've made tickets about it too, so Paradox is aware of it, right? So going back to flavor, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10, and I know this will surprise a lot of you guys, but this is a 9 out of 10 because there is a lot of flavor, right? There really is a lot more. Than it surprised me to see how much flavor there is. And before we go to the balance, because it kind of goes hand in hand, flavor and balance, but before we go to that, for example, because I saw here you have a mechanic if you're part of the Tatar yoke. Basically, I love this actually. This is really well done in my opinion. Basically, if you don't pay the money the tribute you're supposed to pay to the Tatars, your development dies. So there's a slider in your economy tab where if you don't pay, you lose development. It's so good. It basically forces you to pay, because if you don't, you just lose development. Development is probably the most important thing in the game in my opinion for areas, because obviously the higher development, the more bonuses you get. It's not the only one, of course. If you don't have control, you don't get nothing out of it, right? But yeah, the point is that it's really important to get high development, and it's hard to get development. So that's just like a really cool way compared to EU4, where it's just like you lose a little bit of money or your country gets devastated, which you can fix easily. In EU5, you don't fix losing development easily. It's impossible to fix easily. It's really hard to get back that development. Anyway, so flavor 9 out of 10. I genuinely am very surprised to see how much flavor there is. Balance is a big one, guys. So balance, we're gonna use the latest Tinto dev talk or development diary number 4 here, where they show the new world with the Spanish Empire and such, right? So the current balance of the game is, I would say, a 7 out of 10. For example, by the 1400s, if you have historical AI on, which is an option in settings, by the way, it's actually surprisingly historical, but some things are a little bit unbalanced in the sense that I was playing example as Brandenburg, right? And it was 1420. I had 800 soldiers, standing army, 800. It was like 4, I think more than 800. I had 1 cannon and 4 handgunners, so it was 850 or something. The point is that was as much as my economy could sustain. Okay, Brandenburg's actually really weak in EU5. Is super weak, and I had size-wise like all of northeast Germany, so that was all of Pomerania, all of Brandenburg proper, the northern bits of Saxony, quite a bit of land. And then there was this little OPM next to me, I forgot the name, some silly ass OPM, and they were able to field 3,600 soldiers. I'm talking handgunners and cannons and everything else. How explain to me how. I don't know how. It pissed me off, man. Am I really that? I'm not gonna lie, this might actually be a skill issue, because they have turned the AI to 11. Like, the AI is a lot more difficult than it was before. It does have some issues, namely it does not maintain its fortifications during peacetime. So when you declare war, if you rush for the fortifications, you can actually grab it before they have any garrison, so you can instantly grab the forts and win the war by that, right? That's a tactic, by the way. But that's also known. Johan himself said that the next version we're gonna receive will directly fix that, so they're always going to be maintaining their forts, probably just not maintaining the forts that are inwards and like difficult to reach by the player or other nations. So AI wise, we're not an AI topic, we'll talk about that later. Balance. So balance wise, it's a lot more balanced than it was before. Bigger, historically strong nations are very strong. The Ottomans, usually by the 1420s, they grab almost half of Anatolia and they start having footholds in the Balkans. The Byzantines have collapsed in every single game I've had so far, and we haven't talked about Byzantines for flavor, but we'll do another dedicated AAR quote unquote for Byzantines, because I've got a run going as the Byzantines now and is a lot of flavor. So compared to the previous version, there's scripted civil wars now. So from the start of the campaign, you have guaranteed at least 2 or 3 civil wars, guaranteed ones. Yeah, pretty bad. You have like -90 freaking stability from the start. Getting rid of privileges is a lot more more difficult. You need 95 legitimacy. You basically have 0 for the first 100 years. It's close to impossible to increase your legitimacy. And you need 95 just to revoke the privilege, and then every single privilege is going to cost you a lot of stability to revoke. Another thing that you don't have as the Byzantines. So yeah, it's a lot more difficult now than it was in previous versions. You still have like 9 something inflation from day one. You don't have the loans. You only have like 26 ducats loans compared to 1,200 that you had before. But within the first year, you have like 3 or 4 events that you basically have to take loans up to 1,200. So you get the loans back within the first year. Anyway, it's way better done though. Compared to before, it's a lot better scripted. The fluidity of the gameplay is much better than it was before. I do think the AI is very difficult. I'm not gonna lie. I like that a lot actually, because it makes it a little bit more challenging, especially after the 1450s, 1470s. The AI is really, really good because like every single ward that I have, they make sure they have all their fronts covered, their flanks, the center, everything. They make sure they have a good army composition from what I could notice. And I've seen the AI also properly colonizing the Spanish, the French, the English, the Portuguese go for the New World a lot, and they reap the benefits off of that. I haven't done a proper colonial game, but that's on my list to do after I finish the Byzantine and the Brandenburg runs I got right now. I'm gonna do a Spanish one next. Speaking of, let me know what you guys want me to do AIR wise, because I will be doing some after action reports, right, for whatever countries I'll be playing as. So for balance, I will give it an 8.5 because I've given too many 9s. I'm gonna give it 8.5 out of 10. There's still room for improvement when it comes to balance, especially in the category of France. I'm calling out France specifically, okay? Every single game I've seen, France become HRE Emperor somehow. I've seen them get like 5 times more base tax than all the rest of freaking Europe combined, basically. And they almost always grab the northern parts of Aragon. So they end up having really extremely good lands from there. And like by the 1700s, they're so centralized and so powerful that it's impossible to fight them. But that's just my, well, 1600s, not the 1700s. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I think we should nerf France a little bit. They've also every single time won the 100 Years' War. I mean, to be fair, that is historical. But to compare things, base tax in 1500, I think, no, 1450, I think, was like 400 something, 480 maybe in England. And it was like 4,000 in France. Like, bro, come on, really? That's a big freaking difference. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about AI and automation. So AI is good. It's really, really good. The nations are playing their countries really well. They're doing really good economically, really good militarily. They get progressively more difficult to fight against as you go into the campaign. And automation is decent, but for example, when it comes to trade, if I was to automate my trade, I would get like, I don't know, mid to low amounts of money from automating it. Okay, I'll do a very exact concrete example. My first playthrough with the new version as Brandenburg, I had 2, 3, maybe 4 ducats from trade in the first 30 years with automated trade. Okay, I tested it. And I had, I think like 8, 9 marketplaces and a little bit in every single village. I had market towns or whatever they're called, market villages. And then I stopped automating and I went from 2 to 3 ducats to 14 because I don't know. The AI was just not prioritizing making money. It was prioritizing filling up needs, I believe, from buildings and filling up needs for pops and stuff. So it was not going for the most profitable trade. There's pros and cons to that, obviously. If you have high amounts of control and you make a lot from your base tax, you can tax as efficiently as possible, let's say, then yes, you'll make more money from that. But if you don't have the control, you don't have the efficiency for taxing, it's better to just go for the more juicier gold or whatever jewelry trades, right? Because then you actually make profit off a trade rather than increasing your base tax. And the AI doesn't understand that, I believe, or I don't know, it was not doing it for me at least. I don't know what was happening, right? So automation is good to a certain extent. I think what most people are doing is they're automating a certain amount of their trade. So they're manually setting some trade routes and then the rest they're automating, because you have the option of doing half and half, a little bit of automation, a little bit of manual doing everything, right? And it's the case with everything. You can automate some of your estates taxation. You can keep the other, if you don't want to automatically tax certain estates, you can do it manually, whatever you want. So there's that option too, right? So AI automation, I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10. I'd say it's decent because it has its decent moments. Now, biggest problems off the top of my head, I actually cannot think of anything that is a massive issue. I have to say that this version of the game has made me very, very hopeful. I know I put the biggest problems tab in there. I guess I could say UI, but it's not as big of a problem after you get used to it. Honestly, even me with my dyslexia, I got used to it after a few hours, so it's not the end of the world. It will get some people riled up for sure, and I'm sure they're going to continue to improve UI before the final version of the game is out. So I guess the main big issue is time. Do we have enough time to fix all the little bugs, all the events that don't work, all the events that need to be properly implemented into the game before the game is released? I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on the amount of people working on this. I don't know how many people are working this. Maybe there's 1,000 coders. Maybe there's 5. I don't know. But considering Paradox is a company that has released many games and they seem to know what they're doing, I trust them with it. I think if they gave themselves 4th of November as their release date, then they probably feel confident that they're going to be able to fix everything by the 4th of November. My next video on this is going to be after I finish another, say, 50 or so hours of playing the game more, because like I said previously, the more you play it, the more different your opinion is, guys. Like, I've got 250 total, let's say round it up to 250 total now with the previous amount from the previous version. It's not much. It's basically nothing. I'm barely scratching the surface. The game is so complicated. The game has so many features, so many things that I haven't yet discovered, haven't yet experienced myself. So I don't want to make like a video on this every 5 seconds and have a completely disinformed opinion because I just don't have the experience, right? So my plan is play about 50 hours every single nation, learn a different aspect of the game. So I'm going to do 50 hours with Brandenburg, take it all the way to 1830s, then 50 hours with Brandenburg. I'm actually doing now Brandenburg and Byzantium at the same time. So get these 2 nations, then I'll dedicate 50 hours to Castile and colonization. I played a little bit of Castile. They are insanely overpowered, by the way. I mean, insanely overpowered, but we'll get into that in a future video, and I will detail every single step of everything I did in the campaigns and dedicated AARs that I'll release on this channel. And by playing more, I learn more what the actual issues are, what the main things that need to be addressed are. What my opinion obviously will change the more I play the game. I've noticed that because from when I first played it to now, I've had 7 different opinion changes altogether, right? Since the more experience you have, the more things change. Also, some random thoughts. Balance wise, it's a lot more difficult to expand now. They've nerfed expansion massively, especially within the HRE. You can only expand if you have a Casus Belli after they pass the Golden Bull, and that passes very easily. It's usually the first reform that they pass. So after the first 20 years or so, you need to have a CB to expand, and aggressive expansion, or antagonism as it's called now, is a lot more potent than it ever was before. So you cannot just grab half the HRE by 1400 like you could before. By 1440, you have 1444, you have all of Northeast Germany as Brandenburg, and that's it. And that's a good case. Like, it's very difficult to expand compared to how it was. Like what I did in this campaign here with the Byzantium, grabbing half of the Anatolian Peninsula and most of the Balkans, is not possible by the 1400s. It is 100% not possible. It is very difficult. You have to have insanely good RNG. So yeah. Also, control wise, it's way more difficult to get control up when you're struggling to even make 10% of the finances that you could before. There are ways of increasing control. There's the possibility to increase it even more than before if you have the finances for it. But considering that finances have been nerfed hard, it is just way more difficult to get your control simply because you don't have the money to build the necessary buildings now. Also, speaking a little bit about the outbreaks, they're more potent now. So smallpox especially, I've seen, kills a lot more of your population than it did before. The Black Death is roughly about 40 to 50% of the world population in the old world gets murdered by it. So yeah, it's about the same as before. But yeah, the smaller plague, measles, smallpox, all that kills a lot more pops than it did before, so you have to be more careful. It's a little bit more of incentive for you to build hospitals and everything else too. I'm gonna leave it here. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to use my link if you want to get EU5 for yourself. Really help out the channel massively. And let me know in the comment section what you like to see me talk about when it comes to EU5. Love you, and I'll see you in the next